Each of you tonight to the school board workshop on Monday, April the 26th, 2021. At this time, I'm calling the meeting to order. If we could stand for a moment of silence, and then we will proceed with the Pledge of Allegiance. Okay, if we'll proceed with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, again, I would like to welcome each of you to the school board workshop. The first item we have, or the only item we have, is personnel items, and that Ms. Joseph for the personnel items.
Okay, since I've been talking a lot, I want to go to the podium.
Okay.
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
In front of you, all of you should have your staff and allocation plan for the district. The reason I call this meeting, I wanted us to have time to discuss this and thoroughly understand what we're presenting to you and the rationale behind why we're doing it. And so I figured this was a better forum to discuss this. Excuse me. Just minor changes, but it's something that we have to bring before you every year. Starting on page 3, this page is consistent with last year's and the prior years. When we do staffing, we have to do it, we do it according to a formula. It's not, and so that way we're not showing any favoritism toward anyone. There are cases we do fill the gaps, but we have to have a starting base. And so this is what we're doing. For the elementary schools, it doesn't matter how many students we have our principal, and between 175 and 499, we have a half curriculum coordinator and a half MTSS person, and all schools will have a secretary, a head custodian, and a base para. And then if they go above 175, they'll have another para. That's your basic staffing for each school. Now, you will get other staffing put in with other sources, for example, Title I and ESE. That will get other staffing put in, but this is your basic staffing per school, elementary schools. For your central school, that's our only K-8 school, and there's a change in there that we haven't had before. For our assistant principals, okay. We were asking for 2 assistant principals from 351 to 749 students. After that, you get another assistant principal. Therefore, with the population at Madison County Central School, that will be 3 APs for next year. Okay. And you've got your deans according to your population: 1 counselor, 1 guidance secretary, 1 MTSS person, 1 media specialist. You've got a school secretary, and then if you get above a certain number, you get a second school secretary, which is for central also. 1 bookkeeper, 1 data secretary, 1 receptionist clerk, 1 head custodian, 1 base para, And if they get above a certain number, you get another base para, a virtual paraprofessional, because the sister school has a virtual lab, and we've got to staff that. And another just a regular parapro for your ISS program, because they have that. And looking on the back of that, you'll see the staffing that we've outlined for the high school. Now, for assistant principal, I need you to look at this. It says between 351 and 749, they get 2 APs. If they get 750 to 1,000, they get another APs. Central school falls in that first, and the high school falls in that first category, so the high school will only have 2 APs, not 3. This is not saying they get 3. It says if they were staffed that way, they would get 3. But they only staff if they are, the population is that way, they get 3. They only have the population to warrant 2 APs. And I think the rest of it is self-explanatory. Going down to your, any questions thus far? So everybody noted the one change we made. Going down to your district. Because of how things were going this year, I'm requesting a change. We did have a director of human resources, but I think that position would be better served for me if it is as a coordinator of human resources. And so that's why that is like that. Okay, secretary, that was okay, okay. Going down to coordinator of safety, no, we already have that one, that's not it. The mental health counselors. We've had conversations about that for both years that I've been here. Right now, with the mental health counselor, we contract with Appalachia and they provide counselors. Now, I want to put this on the staffing table that we hired 2 mental health counselors, but we were in receipt of a grant this year to hire mental health counselors. Those are hot commodities this year. And it took us so long to find 2 qualified people to even hire on that grant position. And so we're going to explore that, but we may have to contract with Appalachia again with the mental health allocation that comes from IFEFP. So that's why I have those asterisks next to that. My student and family support specialist, that was my migrant person. His duties just got expanded a little bit, and I think that covers the title of what he was doing a little bit. It more defines what that position is about rather than just saying migrant specialist. Okay, one position that we're putting in beneath that is parent facilitator. Oh no, that's not, we've already got that. Our daughter ed truancy monitor, and you're going to see that truancy echo again because that's a big thing of what the DOE wants us to do. We've got a lot of children, we've got a lot of unclaimed children. We've got to find those children, and we've got to beef up our efforts of finding those kids. Now, going to the back of that page, this is the staff informant that's put out by the state. Okay, 4-year-olds, you need a 1:18 ratio with a teacher, with a paraprofessional. Okay, and with the BPK, it may be a CDA, and we do have 2 CDAs in this district. Am I correct? We employ 2 CDAs in the district. Okay, we've actually have 4. okay? Okay, you've got your 1 to 18 ratio through 3rd grade, 1 to 22 ratio through 4th through 8th grade, and 1 to 25 ratio 9 to 12th grade. On the back of that page, well, on the bottom part of that page, this is how we're going to be dealing with our at-risk kids. We've got a bridge program at Central School. We've got a bridge program at the high school. Somehow, they're getting meshed back in the regular kids. We're not going to start a new school, but we're going to house them in a different place. They will still be assigned to their specific school. We will put a lead teacher administrator over there with 3 paras. They will have a middle school group and they will have a high school group. But it will still be the bridge. The middle school students will be assigned to the middle school. The high school students will be assigned to the high school. We are not opening a new school. We're just having a remote location for those particular classes so we can better meet their needs. Question, comments? The other items in this is basically the same until we get down to the last page, page 11. I wanted to put this on a separate page because these positions we are recommending, they will be paid for with the grant. And when the grant leaves, these positions will be leave. I don't want them to absorb into our regular staffing allocation plan. One of the things we've going on, we've got a lot of learning loss. And the programs we are using, it requires a lot of one-on-one. But with the ratios we have, a teacher can't get the one-on-one. We're going to need to hire some more paraprofessionals to be able to work in small groups with the kids. And so that's why we are asking to hire 20 additional paras with the Ursa Tubman funds. We're asking to hire 2 additional custodians because of CARES. With this CARES fund that we got this past year, we were able to put in additional paras to help with the cleaning of the building and the different sanitations, and we want to continue that because they are having to take extra sanitary precautions. This instructional coach, we've got everybody to teach the students, and then we evaluate teachers, we put them in different categories, says need improvement, put them on a behavior, we put them on a plan, but we need, yes, we have principals out there, but we will need someone to directly support the teachers. And so that's the purpose for that instructional coach. Yes, Ms. Hill and I was talking about it. One person is going to be hard, but we want to start with what we can handle. And so we're asking for one instructional coach to work with all the teachers that need improvement. And yes, that would be a district. They will work all over the district. They will have to schedule what time to go in to work with the student if they're on a corrective action plan.
Is that for all the schools in the
It's
district?
that one person will work with all the schools. Now, we'll still have our instructional literacy coaches at the school, but this person will work directly with the teachers. They will not be working with the students on things on their corrective action plans. Because if we've got a teacher, sometimes they just need a little personal support, and hopefully this will get that teacher up to where we need them to be.
But they'll know in advance that this is strictly for 1 year.
Yes, All the items, the positions on this page.
As 1
It's
year.
not necessarily 1 year, the duration of the grant,
The grant,
okay?
Right.
Let's phrase it like that,
yes.
okay? Because right now it says 2 years, I don't know, but it's for the duration of the
Right.
grant. In our allocation on our regular FEFP, we've got enough funds for 2 counselors. This year, we were fortunate enough to get a grant to hire 2 additional counselors. And it's really helping. And so I'm asking for funds to hire 2 counselors out of the CARES grant.
Now, do we still have the counselors from Appalachia?
Yes.
Okay, so we're keeping those on, okay.
The ones that we have with the grant, they also will be working they'll be seeing students during the summer.
Okay,
We
so,
will continue groups during the summer if possible.
The counselors from Appalachia are kind of as needed for
Okay.
emergencies.
okay, just,
When we have our own counselors, they're able to run counseling groups and work with our administrators on their positive behavior system. And it's a lot more integrated with what we normally do.
thank you.
Okay, I told you we'd be seeing that truancy again. From this grant, we want to hire a person to work with truancy and mental health. The difference with this truancy person, I want to call this the level 3 truancy. The other truancy person, that's the one the school will call and says, I sent an all-call home, the child didn't show up. When it comes down to the district office, that person will call. Okay, this person will go to the house and find the child. This is going to be a child find person. We've got to find these children somehow. The state is encouraging and pushing and wanting everybody to go find these kids. We've got to find them because one day they're going to be taking care of us. We know they're going to need to have some type of education behind them. And so we have got to find these kids. Mental health is a very big thing. We have mental health meetings all the time. And we're also at the point we're trying to roll out mental health activities and counseling available to staff. We hadn't got there yet, but at the beginning of next year, we will have that availability capacity also. But we need some person dedicated that knows the community, that can go out in the community and help us retrieve these kids that's not coming to school. We know we have some kids because of health reasons can't come to school. Okay, we respect that. But some people is using this pandemic as a crutch. And we're not going to make them come to school, but we're going to encourage and embrace them and give them the support they need to come back in our fold. Grant supervisor, it says it enough in itself. We've got lots and lots of grants. When government gives you money, especially federal government, they say take it. You just need to know, after a while, they want to know the paperwork and the paper trail that goes with it. We need someone that, we do have a federal grants person. She's already managing 6 or 7 grants, and this is another one, and right now it's at the tune of $3.4 million. Okay, and the other cares and the other gear, and someone said we're getting another cares, but we need someone to be responsible for this because we will be accountable for this. We will need to track it. We need to make sure that we are spending in the appropriate categories. Because if we don't, we don't have to pay it back. When we pay it back, it comes out of general fund. Okay. Our Rti Coach, we've got one at the central school, but they've got approximately 1,000 students. And when you have truancy, you have your behavior, you have academics, and you need to meet with the child, come up with a plan and follow through, that's, that one person is overworked. And we're not meeting the needs of the kids. So that's the purpose of that. STEM coach, academics fine, reading and writing, but that's the way of the world. We've got to get with the program. Early literacy coach, the state is pushing early literacy. And they'll probably be coming out with some additional grants and things because a lot of families decided their little babies didn't need to come out in this pandemic. And so when they come, the school is 6 or 7 years old, what happened to kindergarten? We've got to, and the teachers teaching them, we've got to have something in place. We've got to address the needs. And we've got to operate with grace and compassion. Yes, we've had a year of COVID, and we can't say what you should have done, what you could have done. We've got to take you where you are, embrace you, and help bring you up to par. PE teachers, that's a safety thing. Yes, during our days, we had 50 kids in a PE class. That's not safe. And so the Central School needs another PE teacher because we're having to take the power poles and put in a system, okay? And then when the power poles should be in the classroom working with small groups with the kids. Okay. IT person, we're one-on-one devices, and every teacher has a device, and everybody's got a smart board. Everybody's got to have a J-touch. These things break down. They're human. They were made by humans. They break down. Am I right, Isaac? Okay. Right now we have Isaac and 2 other persons on staff. One at Central School, one at high school. These outlying schools, they're at the grace and mercy of Isaac when he gets time, when I'm not bothering him. But with the amount of technology we have, when we're going to invest that much money in them, we need someone there to assist them and make sure that they're running all right. And I'm asking for a community outreach person. We are doing a lot of things in this district. Okay. Madison is a small community, but I need someone to help bridge that gap between our schools and community. Let the schools know what we're doing, and we know what the community is doing, and getting us involved in different ways. So that's what that position is about. And so the positions on this last page, we'll be asking for these positions, but I put them on this page because they will be grant funded, and when the grant goes away, unless we find other sources, our staffing table at the front will remain the same. I won't have to reshuffle that. Any comments, questions?
I'm glad to see that you're bringing in a couple of new kindergarten teachers because basically it's going to happen with the teacher in the classroom, in my mind. I mean, you can have coaches here, there, but the teacher in the classroom is the one that's going to be doing the work, you know. Mm-hmm. So I'm all for supporting her and giving her, you know, with this grant, mm-hmm. giving them paraprofessionals and like you said, when the grant expires, then these positions expire.
Unless we find another funding source.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Okay, another thing about bringing in an extra teacher, if we start the year, and that's what is supposed to happen, we've got a ratio of 1:18, and all of our classes are 1:18. Florida student population is supposedly increasing. And so if you're already at your cap and you bring another class in, what it is? You're going over your class size. And so that has happened to us in several instances. And we will have some assistance. We'll be able to break the class down with an extra personnel.
I'm just really glad that have the grant to be able to provide extra academic support for these kids that are going to be coming back in that are struggling because they've been so displaced with this pandemic and stuff that it's going to be some catching up to do, and it's going to be hard.
You've got several kids that suffer learning loss, and we can't penalize them for that. All we can do is put things in there to
To
support
try to
them
bring them back up.
and bring them up where they need to be.
Do we know how many, because we've talked about this, about the children that are out there and not receiving any education? Do we have any numbers that, like how many are there?
On this other page, I'll tell you, during our survey 3,
Okay.
when we talk about it, when we did staffing per school, that tells us how many kids that was at that school. And when I finish this, Ms. Hill's going to talk about a plan we have to get additional students at these schools.
Okay.
Okay, on this, and you notice it's draft. Okay? And you may want to look at your staff and allocation plan when we talk about numbers. Your elementary schools, this dictates what staff gets where. We'll start in the high school. The number down at the bottom at 475.12 at third FTE, the week of February 12th. That's how many kids were registered at Madison County High School.
Less than 500.
Okay, if you look on your staffing table, the one that says the high school, and they will fall in that first column. And so that means they will only be privy to 2 assistant principals and 1 guidance counselor. They won't get that 3rd guidance counselor. They won't get that 3rd base para because of the numbers. The names on there, those are the names in those positions right now, but they may not be there, so they're not quite right. Okay? When you're doing staff and you look at the different programs, you look at your general basic program and then your ESC services and support services and your vocational services. That's the breakdown that we have. And it's built in this table, this schedule of, what's the student-teacher ratio for high school? Anybody remember?
It's 20.
1 to
Is
25?
it 25?
1 to 25, okay? So what they've done, they've looked at for the basic program, the high school had 296.34 students. At 1 to 25, that equates to 11.85 teachers. I'm going to go through this first page with y'all like this. I'm not going to do the other page like this. I'm not going to insult you. Okay. Intensive English. What's the 130? That's your ESC, ELL population?
Yeah.
That's your ELL population. You got a half student at the high school, and that gives you 6/10 of 600th of a teacher. And so in your basic program, you got 11.95. We know we don't have a partial teacher, but you round at the end, not up at the top. Okay, with the ESC services at the high school, you got 94.56 students, which gives you 3.78 teachers. And a 254, that looks at the level of support. They've got 1 student at the high school at that level. And so with the ESC services, we get 3.78 teachers. Vocational, you get 4.84 teachers. And so looking at just your basic teachers, you get 20.6 teachers. But we know the school is gonna have a media specialist. The school is gonna have a guidance counselor. The school is gonna have a staffing specialist, okay? And so, right now, from past history, and from talking with Title I, they want their Title I funded by 3 teachers, and the reading allocation give them 1 teacher. That means the high school will get 30.8 teachers, mean, without any additional funds going in, when the CARES money, hope they will be allotted 31 teachers. That's how you read this. And so we see the high school had 475.12 teachers. Looking at the next page, Pineapple had 126.24 students, 126.24 students. And this comes directly from our Survey 3 report. Okay, Greenville had 110.94 students, 111 students. Central School, does this include pre-K? This does not include pre-K. Central School has 958.2 students. And Lee had 163.4 students. Using this and meshing it with our staffing allocation plan, that's our way of work. Now, I know all of us are looking at the number of the students. That's one reason we need a truancy paper. Okay, the students, I think they're here, but how can we get them there? Ms. Hill is working on a plan on possibly increasing the enrollment of some of our outlying schools. Want to talk about that?
Good evening. We're working with transportation. We have noticed that our transportation system, which we kind of live in the old ages without a lot of the modern technology to help us map out our bus routes and things, and we're hoping to be able to upgrade some of that soon. But we're looking at and trying to adjust some of our school zones to cut down on some of the duplication of bus routes, because what we're seeing is we have multiple buses going by some of the same houses. And let me give you an example. There's a street out between here and Lee, where if you live on the right side of the street, you go to Lee. But if you live on the left side of the street, you go, well, I guess that depends on which direction you're going. But you go to the Central School. So 2 separate buses have to go down that street. We're looking at trying to align our bus routes better with our attendance zones, so that we're not having to duplicate some of those routes, and trying to balance things out a little bit better. When we do that is going to change some of the numbers, especially at our outlying schools, It may add a few students to that population so that we are not duplicating transportation services. So we're just getting started in that planning phase, but we do think that's going to increase the numbers at some of the outlying schools when we do that. Questions? I don't have a lot of answers for you yet because we're just getting started in that process. But one of the benefits that will come from looking at that, besides saving money, is going to be hopefully leveling out some of the school numbers.
With school choice, you wouldn't have to really change schools if you didn't want to.
That's correct.
You would just lose your bus service.
That's correct. Yep.
So you zone for a school, but you don't have to go to that school
Unless it's full.
Unless it's full.
Right.
If that school is full, then you can't get in there, but if it's not full in the state of Florida, it's school choice. You can go to, if you want to take your grandchild down to Miami to school, if that school's not full, you can take them.
Right. You can go across district lines. You can't go across state lines, but you can go across district lines.
But you have to provide the transportation.
Correct.
That's even within the district, though, I mean.
Yes, yes, yes.
I'll
So
look.
right now we have, I'd say it's about 60 students district-wide who are going out of their school's attendance zone. We have some that live in Greenville that go to Central. We have some that live in Madison that go to Pinetta, some that live in Pinetta that go to Lee. Because of that open enrollment program, they're allowed to do that as long as they apply within the period of time that is set forth by the board. And the class that they're trying to get into is not, already full. And your district policy is if it's at 90%, then we stop allowing more students to get in, because if you have somebody who moves into that district, then the class is too full. Okay.
Okay, I wanted this meeting because I wanted us to have any conversation we needed about this, any recommendations you want to make to us, we can hear you, but this is what I'm going to be presenting to the board for approval on next Monday night. And as soon as it's approved, we'll start advertising for this personnel.
Does anyone have any comments or questions for Ms. Joseph? I think it's a great idea of having as much remediation as we can have to try to help the fragile learners within the district. I don't know that we truly understand the scope of this until maybe the FSA comes back. I'm afraid that to keep in mind, we already had students who are not on grade level prior to us going out, and I'm afraid that this being home for this amount of time, and even how kids had to go home for so many days here, so many days there this past year, has exacerbated this whole issue of not being on grade level. And it's just really scary to know that in the day in the legislature, when the education commissioner spoke, I think his goal for the state this year for third grade is 90% proficient. And that's a high number, but his thought process behind it was that by the time of high school, 12th grade, if you're not on grade level, probably 85% never reach that point. So if you are initially level 1 in third grade, you're going to remain that. You have a great chance of remaining that. Only around 15% truly remediate, even with all the remediation. So it is very important, like Ms. Joseph is adding the early intervention and the kindergarten, to try to help people be on grade level by third grade, because the older you get and you're not, it's,
The harder it is.
for people who have taught at the higher levels, it's hard to get someone in the 6th grade who's reading on a 1st grade level up to 6th grade reading and comprehension. So I applaud you all for having that early intervention piece, and hopefully it's not as bad as what I'm afraid it could be with the people not being on grade level.
One other topic, Ms. Hill, you want to explain how we're doing summer school, please?
Our goal was to open summer school up for anybody who wanted to come, and then, of course, those that we know need to come. We've had problems getting enough teachers to apply for summer school. They're tired, and I get it. They've been working extra hard to try to catch kids up all year long. And so I understand that some of them said, I don't have it in me to keep going, throughout the summer and come right back to start next school year. Plus, we are changing our ELA curriculum, and especially lower grade level teachers, they like to get that stuff and spend hours planning out lessons and how they, are going to want to do things with the new curriculum. And so, I know that that's going on too. We have a lot of training this summer with the new standards. And so we just had a hard time getting enough summer school teachers for the number of kids that we felt like really needed to come because of the learning loss. What we've worked out is for 6th through 12th grade, they're going to do credit recovery, and we're going to provide a teacher to actually be there with them to help them with the online program. For K to 5, we are having to focus on the students that were close to promotion, but didn't quite make it. We still don't have concrete numbers on that yet, but we know from looking at the first 9 weeks, we can make a good kind of guess at how many are going to need summer school. So what we've decided to do this year is do 3 hours of ELA and 3 hours of math each day. We're only going to have summer school for 20 days. It's going to be, we used to have summer school for 6 hours a day, but we're going to go a traditional length day. But we're just going to focus on ELA and math. And the students will be able to earn a promotion if they, score a 70 or higher in the ELA and the math. But the goal is to spend that time just making sure the kids get the interventions that they need. And so we want our groups to be small. We're going to use our level literacy program for ELA. Those groups run 4 to 5 students at one time, and so we need paras to be there to help in facilitating, that. And we want teachers to just provide face-to-face instruction. We're not going to use Rti. We're not going to use other electronic programs. It's going to be direct instruction.
At the school?
At the school.
Okay, because they've been on Florida Virtual School this entire year.
They've been using the Florida Virtual School curriculum,
Right,
yes. The curriculum that we're going to be using is an intervention curriculum. It is paper-based, and we're not going to spend time practicing on iReady. We're going to be doing a lot of instructing. Because when it comes down to it, that direct instruction is where you're going to see major progress.
Yes, the practice on iReady is very helpful. And when you've got time in a school day to do that, then yes, put it in there. But where we are, we have a lot of ground to make up with these students. And so 3 hours of, ELA, we're going to spend it making sure students are understanding what we're trying to teach them.
Especially the third grade, I know that scores may not be back, but if you have, like, based on your iReady data, a student who is at the low level of level 1 on iReady, will those students be retained, or
No, sir.
what?
Basically, the state has waived all test scores.
But as a district, I know in the past, we had set scores that you had to score a certain percentile in order to go on. Are we not doing that anymore?
That is,
We're functioning with grace and compassion, okay?
well,
I
where we
get
had
that.
that was to be promoted if you got a level 1 on the FSA. Then we had other measures that you had to meet to get promoted after summer school. In our regular student progression plan, there's not anything tied to a test score. It is all grade-based, except for third grade. And with the commissioner waiving the testing requirement, it's now just basically their class grades.
And I get that, and I understand about the grace and compassion, and I understand about him waiving it. But I want everyone here to understand, at some point, if we keep moving people up, you're never going to catch them up. I mean, that's the reality of it. If you have students who, and they're in the third grade, and they're 2 to 3 grade levels behind, and you move them up to fourth grade, suddenly you're going to have a fourth grader who is on first grade level. And I mean, that's the only thing I'm questioning is, I mean, at some point, I mean, I think we do need to look at retentions, because how will we ever catch them up?
Yes, sir, I understand that, and that's definitely something we can talk about when we address the student progression plan this year.
Even at the younger grades, I don't know that it shouldn't be something in there for, like, even younger, like, if you're in second grade and you're still on kindergarten level, either something's wrong. Something's wrong.
Well, and that's where our RTI process should have come into effect, and we should have already gone through the problem-solving process and determined if the child had a learning disability and, or something like that is preventing the child from, learning the content. And then we would, have things in place, to supports in place to help them. And I think that overall we're seeing that our RTI process is very beneficial in trying to get students the support that they need. But just so that you understand, we have retained a high percentage of students in kindergarten through second grade. And research shows that retaining students past second grade is really not effective, even in catching them up.
Right.
And so, we try to, if we're going to retain a student, we try to do it where it's going to be the most beneficial. And research shows that's kindergarten. Kindergarten is really where you need to catch them. We still do have to retain at times at first grade and second grade. But once they get to third grade, the data just shows that retaining them is not beneficial. Now, I haven't been an elementary school principal. Did I retain students in fourth and fifth grade? There were times when that was what the student needed. And so you have to look at each student individually to determine what is in the best interest of that child. we already end up in high school, well, let me go to 8th grade, with 16-year-olds in 8th grade.
Right.
And so, and it's not one or two. So we definitely have tried to make sure that we get kids caught up before they move on. But we do have quite a few students who meet the exemption to retention criteria because, of a plan that they have in place or something like that. But we don't just pass them on. There's not a school in our district that is just passing students on, I promise you.
I'm not saying that. It's just very scary when these scores finally do come out of what we're going to be faced with of level ones.
Yes, well, and I mean, you guys are waiting for the scores to come back from the state. We have the iReady scores and the STAR scores now. We know exactly, what we're looking at. And it's, yes, we have students who have learning loss. We have more students who chose to do the distance learning or the virtual option that are experiencing learning loss than we have those who have been face to face. And so part of what we're seeing for this summer are a lot of those students who started off virtually were not successful, and now they're needing to try to catch back up because of when they were at home. It's harder for a teacher to stay on top of how the things they're not getting. Just the simple feedback in the classroom of when I'm teaching and I'm reading your facial expression, I know if you're getting it or not. You don't have that in a virtual environment. And so it's just the simple things that we take for granted as a classroom teacher that once our teachers taught virtually, they went, wow, this is way different. And I don't feel like I'm on top of, do the students have it or not? And so those that came back, and they realized, we had a lot that came back after the first 9 weeks. They realized this I can't do this. My internet's not fast enough, or, my situation at home is not, I don't have the supports that I need or whatever. And so we had a lot who came back after the first 9 weeks that have kind of turned the corner. But then we had some that came back at the semester that just didn't come back in time for us to be able to turn their ship around. And so we will have to do that this summer.
So you have data on the level one or from the iReady of where students are at?
I do. I don't have it with me right now, but I can get that for you.
Could we maybe get that at the next? Because, I mean, it is concerning. I mean, for the simple fact of we were making progress and moving up. And for all the fragile learners in the district, and we have many, this could be, I mean, who knows where it could take us, really. I mean, in reality, not trying to be doom and gloom of this, but in reality, that's the reality of it.
Yes.
I mean,
I do.
even your 4s or 5s could drop to 2s and 3s.
Oh, yeah, no doubt. I will say this. I have to brag on our teachers. We have teachers who are staying after school to help students try to catch back up, not even getting paid, just, they're students in their classroom and they see they're behind and they want to help them. And so, they're going back, they're doing a lot of reteaching of things that the kids may have missed when they were, doing distance learning. And I have just been amazed and so proud of our teachers and their efforts, because they don't want those students to stay behind. They're just, they're trying so hard to catch them up. And I have been amazed. And honestly, yes, some of them are so tired because they're at that school until 5 and 6 o'clock every day, you know, trying to plan out how can I do this better tomorrow to help every one of those students. And it's not just, you know, the little bit from this year where they started off virtual, or we're going all the way back to last school
Right.
year, you know, when we went.
Because if you think
Virtual.
about it, if you think back, whenever we went home May the 17th, from that point to the end of, March the 17th, from that point to the end of May, if you're a third grader, you didn't get the last 9 weeks of instruction. And a lot of third grade teachers or fourth grade teachers now are probably seeing in the iReady scores is the last part of third grade that they weren't taught, that they don't
Yes.
know. So teachers probably are having to go back and reteach.
They have, and
It's
they
just
are.
a bad situation. And then you throw on top, if you are virtual and maybe not doing what you should at home, and you have even more instruction and standards that haven't been taught. So it's just a bad situation, but we just need to make sure that, I don't know what the answer is, but I know that it could be bad for us because it has been bad for us, and they've been there before in the past.
Right, and I want to say this, you know, our goal is to be very intentional with our interventions. And that's, you know, yes, we've been doing summer school, and yes, we've, you know, tried to help kids get promoted in the past. We have more of a goal of getting students caught up. And yes, they can get promoted in the process, but the goal is to get them caught up, which is why we're doing away with, you know, the supplemental stuff, and we are going to drill down on those interventions and make sure that everybody who's there, they're getting face-to-face instruction that whole time they're at summer school.
I'm looking again at the grant-funded positions, which I understand what's going to happen. They may last for 2 or 3 years, who knows? But again, the progress is going to have to be made in the classroom with the teacher. And we don't know how they've done the last year and a half, and who knows what. And I don't know all the stipulations of the grant, but and I see a lot of coaches right here, and I'm sure we need them, but I'm thinking, do we need more classroom teachers to make this classes size smaller so we can?
I see exactly what you're saying, and I understand that question, and I appreciate that question. Part of what we're trying to do, like with the instructional coach, if our teachers can't instruct at the highest level, then we're not benefiting like we could be. We do have, because of where we are and the fact that, you know, our pay is not at the highest level, we get a lot of new teachers. Part of what I see happening is there has to be a lot of time dedicated to those teachers who are on coaching plans that, like, let me give you an example. A reading coach is having to stop their reading training to go work with a teacher that is having classroom management issues. We can get cited for that because we're paying for the reading coach out of the reading allocation. So we're trying to make sure we use the coaches where they're supposed to be used. We're doing a book study right now called The Impact Cycle, and it just has opened my eyes to the fact that if someone's not helping the teachers grow, then we're not going to get the best instruction. And so because of all the young teachers that we have, teachers who are coming into education that have not gone through an educator program, no one's ever helped them organize a classroom. No one's coached them through. Yes, they're assigned a mentor who meets with them, you know, one day a month after school. That really is not helping them to improve their instruction. And so what we wanted to do with the grant, which is temporary, is put some things into place for a year or two that can have an impact long-term. And so if we help teachers become better, then they can continue that long-term, and we wouldn't need the coach. But if we don't improve our instruction, then we're going to continue getting the same things we've always gotten.
I think what I'm bringing this up is in the past, coaching was strictly voluntary. I mean, the teachers, if you want the coach
Oh,
to
yeah.
help you, or the
No.
information, the book studies, everything's going
These are
on.
people with
But it was
plans.
strictly if they decide they want to participate.
And there are
a lot of
some
times those who can
trainings,
do it will participate,
Right.
and the ones that don't do it
there are some
don't.
trainings that are that way, but the
But-
instructional coach who's working with teachers on a coaching plan, it's all required.
That's required.
Yes,
And-
ma'am.
That's
And
gotta be-
I agree with what Ms. Hill's saying. Probably the big difference, Ms. Gibson, from when we worked years ago at the primary school.
Yeah.
All the teachers there at that point went to college to be a teacher.
Oh, yes.
You have, and this is a sad reality, and I'm not trying to say something that I shouldn't say, but many of the people we hire are people who, that was not their first choice and never did a school practicum to
Right.
even know how to be a teacher.
Yeah,
That's what we're facing. We have people thrust in these positions who have no clue about classroom management, setting out the rules of how it's going to be for the classroom, and so you, especially in the younger grades, if you don't, you know, I mean, you taught kindergarten for many years. If you don't lay the law down
On
and-
day one.
on day
That's right.
one and
That's
stick
right.
with it. I mean, and I see myself just going in classrooms with teachers who are new teachers. It can be a nightmare.
And that's one of the classroom management. I mean, if you don't have it, you can't teach.
Right. And,
And
and,
that's-
and again, the internet is great. However, it has taken out of the equation of teachers having to go on campus and have face-to-face with instructors that teach them how to be teachers and what you should do in those types of situations. And I mean, that's the reality of the times we live in, but I do think we need to provide them all the instruction we can, because that's the only way we're going to move forward. We're in such a small district that we do not have the luxury of having 20 people applying for a job that graduated from Florida State, VSU, FAMU in education. You may have
Hopefully,
someone,
Hopefully with us having a literacy coach, it'll build the capacity of that teacher and make them feel better about themselves, and it will lead to more retention, because
Right.
a lot of teachers leave the field because they don't feel they
Overwhelmed.
need the support they should get to make them better.
Well, right.
But
And-
once
and-
you-
And
if
I'm
they
all
accept-
for it.
mhm.
You know, I'm all
Right.
for it. But
And-
if you say, would you like to, my help, you know, some of them may think, I don't think I
Because
want
certain
any help.
things
Yeah.
will be required.
Yeah, some things
Yes.
have to be required.
Well, and I want to share with you that one of the main emphasis that we have made with administrators is coaches are not administrators. They are to be used coaching teachers, not, you know, doing duty here or there, or, you know, figuring up data. They're there to work with teachers. And so, and I try to stay on top of that. They have to turn in a log so that I see, you know, what they've been doing. And we're going to continue that, because that's where we can make a long-term difference. Yes, ma'am.
With the coaches, are y'all gonna try to get more veterans or call in more retired teachers, the ones that have the know-how?
We will open that up for everybody. Now, to be hired as an instructional coach, whoever we hire will need to have had, you know, previous evaluations where they were highly effective. But yes, we can hire
a retired teacher or whomever, as long as they can demonstrate experience working with teachers and having success.
They would still have to have a license, wouldn't they?
Oh, yes, they have to have a certification.
I think that's a good point, because you actually might well, I'm not in charge of that, but, look at people that you've got who are successful in the classroom. Then you know what they're like, someone
Right.
else. It's,
Right. Well, and we don't want to have to pull teachers out of the classroom
Well,
to
I
do
know
this.
that, yeah, that's right.
And so, but we also know that if one teacher can impact 5 teachers,
Right.
then that's more bang for our buck. And so, and this is like I said, a short-term thing. This is not an ongoing thing. This is to try to get us turned around here in the next year or two, and then, hopefully we're back on a trajectory where our students will be performing and our teachers performing also.
This is such a big piece, and Ms. Gibson can speak to this with procedures in the smaller grades. I mean, you can tell teachers who went over procedures, and the kids know it when you go in their class, because the kids are sitting there doing what they should versus a teacher who has not done procedures, and it's chaos.
Right.
It's just.
Mrs. Hill has seen it. It's
Oh, yeah.
like it.
I also want to say, I put in there the early literacy specialist, because we do not have good communication. We don't work very much with the Early Learning Coalition and Head Start and those programs. The state is pushing mightily to establish partnerships where we get everyone around the table and try to figure out how to help the private VPKs and our public VPKs to making sure all students are kindergarten ready when they start. In our district, last year, we had 64% of our kindergartners who were kindergarten ready. So that meant, that we still had a large percent that were not ready for kindergarten. We've got to change that. That number is far too low. There's way too much for students to have to learn in kindergarten than to have to go back and also learn,
Do you think it was because they're not being identified as DD?
Some were identified as DD.
But do you think it's more that should be DD and that aren't?
I think we have a lot that didn't go to pre-K, but we also need to make it consistent, the expectations consistent. Yes, they are DD.
Or language impaired? I mean, you may have a lot that are language impaired. I mean, with us being just named the poorest county in the state, that's going to go hand in hand with having poor language skills. And
yes.
And I mean, that's to be expected, but you would wonder if the numbers maybe should be higher for pre-K ESC to have a higher language impaired or DD population, maybe that aren't. But then the state doesn't want you to over-identify, so
That's
there
right.
you go.
That's right. So, but we've got to get more kindergartners ready for kindergarten. And so what we've tried to do is figure out a way to develop a partnership, having someone that works for the district but goes out and coordinates with these other programs, for services. And honestly, I mean, there are a lot of services out there for small children that I had no clue about. And so, I went to some training last week and I found out about some of that, and I was like, man, we need to, somebody in our district needs to take that ball and run with it. But there's nobody to do it. I wish I could, but I can't add one more thing yet. And so, we need someone who can kind of be that liaison and work with, our early literacy to try to get those kindergartners ready for kindergarten.
And Robin, do most of these kindergartners, have they attended some type of preschool that we see?
I will tell you, in the past, I would say about 65% did.
Okay, because a lot of learning could take place at home before you come to
Yes, ma'am.
pre-K or kindergarten.
Yes, ma'am.
I mean, it starts from the cradle to,
Right.
And I don't know if the parents don't know or don't care or don't know what to do or,
I think a lot don't know, and
I
that's,
think it could be a
Just
very
busy.
simple
People
things
have
to
busy
do.
lives, and the TV or the telephone's not what teach a child, and you see so many of them playing the games. That's not good.
No, that's not gonna,
It's really not good for them, and I mean, I think it's just a lot of not knowing what to do.
right. And that's where we want to get out into the community, and we want to help parents learn about the things that they can do. And I know the Early Learning Coalition is getting out there. I know that Head Start is getting out there. But I think if we could get a systematic approach, like I've seen some other districts do, I really feel like we could get 80% of those kids ready for kindergarten. That is not unrealistic for us.
that would
We
help.
can't say that the parents don't care. I think they care. Every parent wants
They're
what's
just
best for their
busy.
child.
They're busy, and
But we're busy and we're rural.
yeah.
And even though it seems like we have a lot, some people, we do not have access. And this person will help all families get access and make them aware of the different activities and programs that's available to them.
And not just with the parents, but we need to take a hard look at what we're doing in pre-K that may not be developmentally appropriate. Because if you have a child who can't say but 50 words, trying to teach them their ABCs to read is not the most appropriate thing you should be trying. And I think that from a speech therapist standpoint, so many times, so much people are getting hung up on that instead of teaching other things, and that's not the most important. Back when you taught kindergarten, that was not your goal,
No.
to have people read.
Kindergarten is not kindergarten.
Right,
now.
That's right.
I think it's better to go back to that.
And developmentally, that's where we're being left behind.
Well, a simple thing like reading
Right.
to a child,
Right.
that makes such a difference.
So it's not just with the parents, it's from the whole standpoint of how it's being.
Yeah.
It's just,
Right.
a lot of things are not developmentally appropriate, in my opinion.
Well, and I see a lot of emphasis, even from the national level, coming to that. There, in all of our presentations with the state, there is going to be a huge emphasis on early literacy. And so I'm hoping for guidance from them on some things that we can do. But I also want to make sure that we have somebody that's leading that charge for us too. The other thing that I asked Ms. Joseph for was a STEM coach. One of the things that came out of our accreditation was that the team that evaluated us felt like our students were not getting enough STEM in our district as a whole, not just one place, but across the board. They did not feel like we were helping our battle with student engagement, getting students engaged, because we were not integrating in enough STEM. And so we need to do that. And we've had a STEM person in the past at a different grants, at different schools. This is someone that would work, with teachers at all the schools and get us back to pulling in those STEM activities, because that's your hands-on learning. That's the things that excite kids about learning. And we get so focused on making sure they're test ready that we lose some of the fun in learning by not integrating in those activities. And so I asked for someone to help kind of lead that charge and get our schools to, integrating in the fun stuff in learning that goes right along with their standards. All right, questions? Yes.
next year, next school term. I mean, are we gonna be offering virtual then?
Ooh, not like we did this year. No, we will go back to offering Madison Virtual, which is the program that we contract with NEFAC for. And students will be able to take virtual classes through that program, but we will not be offering distance learning.
Virtual is very, very hard.
It is very hard, yes. It is.
With Madison Virtual, we are not responsible for the teachers.
So all of our teachers
All of
next
our
year will be
teachers
brick
will-
and mortar.
If you employed as a teacher in Madison County Schools, you will be brick and mortar.
Okay, are there any other questions? If there are no other questions, I appreciate Ms. Joseph and Ms. Hill, the presentation. And we will,
I've got a comment.
okay.
Okay, a couple of comments. We're still in pandemic, but last week, the commissioner sent out an email says student wearing mask on bus will not be required for the 21-22 school year. Right now, we're dealing with grace and compassion because it's a hard thing, but we're still buying masks and providing it for them. Okay, we discontinued morning temperature checks when the students got off the bus. Okay, if the school itself wanted to do it, but officially we have discontinued that. And all of this have been in consultation with the Madison County Health Department.
So the mask on the buses will be next school year?
That's next school year.
Okay.
I think we gotta relook at one of our policies because we've got a policy that says that they're required on the bus. And so I will have that policy full before we
Okay.
get back here.
Okay. There is nothing else. Is there a motion to adjourn?
I made a motion to adjourn.
Motion made by Ms. Bell. Is there a second?
Second.
It's been properly moved by Ms. Bell, seconded by Ms. Williamson. All those in favor, show of hand, please. 5-0, Ms. Bishop. Meeting is adjourned.